That's all that he doesn't know how to measure. You don't know how to measure, put a tape measure, okay?
You did not give us in print number 11, is that correct?
Huh?
You didn't
Yes.
give us in print number 11, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Gave on 9 and 10. I was double checking that myself 55 minutes ago. tells you,
Oh, I've got it, I thought that was yours.
yes. Look at it, get it? Yeah, got it. Just put a few more minutes, some of them still working, but so far we got good results.
I'm getting there.
You get there. Jody, you're done?
Is this the amount not depreciated? Oh, I didn't know.
You in the right track?
Oh, 100. I'm looking at my book, sorry.
Sometimes additions are worst enemy. It's the easy part, we think. Requires no thinking, but requires paying attention. That's the problem I have more times than not. Let's look here, see what we got. Here we go, we got our short-lived, curable is the $2,000. Then we got our short-lived incurable becomes the $9,150. We depreciated these items out. The same token, we took $1,600 off the RCN and $22,900 off the RCN. We get a $75,500. It tells us, after we make these corrections, our effective year is going to be 10 years. We'll take 25%, that'll be $18,875. Add the three together, we should get $30,025. I'll put this, here's phase one. I'll hit all the way, reflection won't kill your flag, okay? There's phase two. You ready for some income? Give us some income.
Okay.
Some more income, right? See, our problem is never with our expenses, is it? We just need more income, right? I won't even get into my personal discussion about that, but anyway. But why think something costs $5,000? What's that bad? It depends on how you figure it. It's over expensive. It's a lot of money. Stock income. I'm on page 114. Here's the good news, or the bad news. Your level 3 will include 20 questions on income. That's pretty good load in it. Did I tell y'all, earlier in the week, I told y'all this. This afternoon, it's only for level 4.
This afternoon?
Yes, for math and law. The rest of you kind of have some free time. You're welcome to hang around for the mass if you want to, but don't confuse your level 3 up yet. But some of you may be ready for that. I had a girl in Amarillo that emailed me on a Monday.
Probably Marissa.
Huh?
Probably Marissa.
Who?
Marissa?
Yes.
I knew it.
I sent her queer on
She is
Tuesday. She
crazy
studies
smart.
on Wednesday, passes test on Thursday.
Yep.
I'm there 2 weeks later. She takes the level review, takes her level 4 exam. Like two more days later, I'm thinking like, whoa, she was smart.
Yes. I sit by her in class every time, and
But she's
I
like,
think I'm having a better time understanding it now because I don't have time to work the problem because she's already got it figured out in 2 seconds.
I know, but she took those 2 tests within about a 3-week period. The 3 and the 4, like boom, boom. So I'm like, whoa, that's who it was.
Yep.
Clements, right?
Yeah.
But she's obviously pretty smart. I was impressed. She took the quiz on Tuesday, took off Wednesday and studied, passed the test, passed level 3 on Thursday. I thought, whoa, that's pretty smart.
Yep.
So anyway, you got 20 questions for level 3, 23 for level 4. Let's just jump into it. You want to?
Yeah.
Remember some income approach methods we had earlier? When you had your, how long ago did you have your income class? Has it been a year?
A little over a year.
2 years? 6 months?
2 weeks.
How many had it? How many of y'all had it inside the last year?
No, we took it like a year ago.
How many
Over.
over a year? How about over 2 years? Over 3 years?
Oh, yeah, right on 3.
It's a long time ago. Let's talk about income then. Remember we had what we call the direct capitalization or the traditional method, where we took the income information and applied it to the property. Then we had the rental and income multipliers. We've already covered that a little bit in these other sections. So what we kind of call yield capitalization. You've been waiting that all week, haven't you? The yield capitalization, we add them together. You was ready for that yesterday, wasn't you?
Yeah.
So yield capitalization, when it comes down to the income approach, there's basically, 4 or 5 basic formulas that kind of cover most of it, and that helps you a little bit. The questions, we go through questions here, but the questions are pretty limited what questions they can ask you in income. There's some formula questions, stuff like that. Then we also have what we call yield capitalization, discounted cash flow analysis. Some of y'all are familiar with that before. DCF, where you discount things out over time and revert it back to a present value. Let's talk about some major principles, or major economic principles that fall in the income approach. And anticipation is probably a very, very strong principle, the fact that you're anticipating what? The property producing more income as you go forward. It's producing income for the previous owner, but my objective is to what? Produce income for me going forward. And sometimes, I'm thinking maybe this thing might change a little bit too though, right? I'm thinking maybe those old leases he's got on that property might need to be updated. I might go in and put a little paint on the front of it, put some new carpet down, and I might be able to get those market rents next year, or run some tenants off one. That can go 50-50 either way. But I'm anticipating some income, some change. There's also an economic principle is supply and demand. Oversupply or lack of demand, or natural lower income possibilities, high demand, lack of supply. Housing, rental housing. There's such a demand for rental housing or housing period that sales are up, rents are up, and it's almost to the point that there's actually there's a huge portion of the population screaming now that they can't afford to live in these properties. What we're seeing in Wise County, a huge explosion of RV parks. People are pulling a travel trailer in, and that's their house now, you know what I'm saying?
Man camps everywhere.
Huh?
We got man camps everywhere. Man
And so what's
camps.
happened, they're putting those things in, getting them full, and turn around and sell them. They just sold a 50 space property for $1.2 million. The guy turned around and bought another property He's getting it fixed up, and I promise you, he's gonna flip it again. And they're just making a ton of money flipping RV parks now. They're good cash flows, steady cash flow, most of it's cash, by the way, so you have to worry about that other problem possibly. And that's happening, but now we get these tiny homes coming in. Tiny home rentals. You wanna rent 400 or 500 square foot for $800 a month? See, me and my wife have been married for 45 years. 46 years. And if one of us makes a strange sound, the other one don't need to enjoy it immediately, okay? So what I'm saying, it's just, that's too tight of quarters for me. Y'all young people may like that. You know, the first 6 months we was married, we totally like that. But here in this 46th year of marriage, we need some space, you know? I could see 3 grandkids coming over, and I couldn't think of it. I mean, the noise would be just reverberating off those 4 little walls, you know? And it just would not be happy times, I don't think. But people are adapting into that, so we'll see how it works out. Maybe, well, that was not, I did not push that far. Keeps me awake, though. Like we're there now. Okay. Here we go. The steps to direct capitalization using IRV. Remember your IRV triangle? Everybody got IRV memorized? If you don't, you need to memorize it so when you get that test site, you know what IRV is, because all those questions about income, rate, and value will all be determined by your IRV calculation on it. So our first step is determine potential gross rent using market rent. Market rent, remember that? Not actual rent, but the market rent. What's the market tell us that's worth? That's also called PGR. These are terms you'll probably see in your future. Then you got this number 2, you're going to subtract the vacancy collection loss or minus VCL. That's going to equal your EGR. There's 10 or 12 questions that come off this list right here. What's the difference between PGR and EGR? It's the VCL. You know, what's the difference between effective gross rent and gross income, secondary income? What's the difference between effective gross income and NOI, operating expenses? There's several ways you can work questions off of this. And what do you do with the NOI to get to the value? You want to divide by the cap rate. So you could create, you know, 10 or 15 questions pretty quick just using this page and this type formula. Now the bottom of your page there is a formula that is not correct, I don't think. Did your
Yeah, it's that-
It's ours is minus.
yours has got a minus right here, and that should be a plus.
That's what I thought.
That's to keep me and y'all both awake, I think. But anyway, this is kind of like this information right here converted to this. It would be a great idea for you, especially on the income portion, to understand and memorize this, or maybe even look at it like this: PGR minus VCL equals EGR, plus SI equals EGI minus OE equals NOI. That'd be great stuff just to grasp. And just, if you'll slow down, I'm talking to myself when I do this, and just think about it, how it progresses, you can answer those questions, can't you? Because you know how it flows on the paper. You have potential gross, effective gross, secondary income, gross income, expenses. Expenses is a whole other challenge. There's some, I'm gonna just, before we get too far into this section, there's some more typographical errors in here, so just relax, and we'll deal with them as we see them, okay? I sent report into headquarters, they haven't got it all changed yet. There's been some typos in here, but we'll cover those as we go. That'll give us an opportunity to probably talk about it a little more, maybe understand it. Sometimes my greatest lessons in life will come from mistakes, you know what I'm saying? You kind of make a mistake or see it wrong, you can fix it and not make the same mistake again. Anyway, here's kind of the way it's going to lay out. PGR minus VCL equals EGR plus SI equals EGI minus OE equals NOI. Then here is the one to move this NOI into this formula. This is that IRV formula. Remember, you have the income equals the rate times the value. You have the rate equals income divided by value. You have value equals income divided by rate. Remember those little division brackets we put in there? They're actually in this drawing, they're on the paper, but they're in this drawing. And that's just how it kind of works in it, on the income side. It's all like, imagine the horizontal line that you showed here, showing division, showing a X at the bottom for multiplication. This is just a real basic formula that allows us to work probably a whole bunch of our income problems, or a majority of our income problems coming off of here. I'm trying to find something. Okay, let's look at some terminology here. Out of those questions, you've got to have a few terminologies you know them well. Some will be math problems and calculations, but there'll also be some terminology to work with. The building cap rate. Remember, we had a building cap rate, which was the discount return rate plus the recap. Remember the recapture? If you don't, you're going to remember in the next couple hours, okay? We're recapturing those short-lived components. So we got the building capitalization rate is always going to be what? Higher than the land cap rate.
Oh, are you talking abandoning those?
Because you're going to have this recapture portion here, okay? Or the discount rate. It's going to be, building rate's going to be higher than discount rate. You're going to have recapture added back in. Then we had the built-up discount rate. One method of estimating a discount rate is 4 components called the risk, the safe rate, liquidity rate, and money management rate. Every time we have a test, it generally asks what makes up the discount, built-up discount rate. The risk rate, the safe rate, liquidity rate, the money management rate. You could have a question though, says which of the following is not part of the built-up discount rate. You could have 3 of those listed and something else in there. Capitalize, a great term, to convert to values. We're taking income and we're capitalizing it, or we're converting it to value. The capitalization rate is a rate used to convert estimated future income into present value. We're going to capitalize that future income into a present value. Then we got contract rent. This will be the actual rent as stated on the contract, but it may or may not be what? Market rent. So we're always looking for what? Market rent. The discount rate is the rate of return on an investment, and the economic rent is the same as market rent, but it also could be different in the contract rent. They could have an older contract that leases are expiring, or yet they may not be getting market rent for their property. Things we hear normally is somebody says, well, they've been a good tenant for 10 years, they always paid on time, I just can't raise the rent. Well, the problem is the market says the rent should be higher, so therefore I've got to use market rent rather than your good old boy rent rate. Well, I have to raise their rent. Well, that's between you and them, okay? You're going to force me. No, we've never forced anybody to do anything, have we? It's their choice to make that decision. Nothing in the law says, well, Mickey can't raise your rent, you got to raise your rent. No, you can absorb some costs, possibly. So economic rent, effective gross income. Here's a formula again. PGR minus VCL plus SI. So what is the formula for the effective gross income? There it is. What's the formula for the effective gross rent? It's the PGR minus the VCL. So those are formulas you can have questions about, in addition to possibly problems. Then equity is actually the ownership. It's the market value minus debts on the property or mortgages equals the equity. How much equity you have in your house? If you bought your house last year for $300,000 and you borrowed $300,000, you probably don't have a lot of equity, do you? You may though. You could have 10% equity if this market went up, possibly. I went to church with a couple. I thought both of them was educated. They bought a house in Paradise, which is probably for $140. The house is probably worth $340 now. That's how much it's changed in that area. For $140, they lived there 3 months. She called me one day. She was upset, and I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, I'm trying to get an equity loan to build a pool." And I said, "Well, what you about to pay the house? Paid $140 for the house." How much did you borrow? You borrowed 140. I said, you don't have any equity. Oh, that's how that works. And I thought y'all were both college educated. And somewhere or not, the elevator was stopping short of the 12th floor today. But anyway, but she was dead serious because she couldn't figure out what she could get an equity loan. She had no equity, okay? But anyway, it struck me a little bit odd that day. We had a worse question called and asked. I used to have a city manager of a large city in my county would call every year. We would give him his rate. Okay, here's your INS rate is 14 cents, and your rollback rate is 62 cents. And he'd come out adopting a rate. Well, I'm gonna adopt a 58-cent tax rate. We're gonna use your 14-cent INS rate. How much is M&O gonna be? He would call and ask that question. One time I was out of the office and he called my assistant, and she said, let me check and make sure. She said, this is too simple. He calls every day, asks the same question. It's called math. Take the total rate minus the INS rate. The difference is the M&O. She said, you gotta be kidding me. No, the whole deal is though, something happens, Mickey told me, okay? So we'll just get it off my plate rather than using my own little canary up here, you know. But anyway, we always laugh about that, but he makes a lot more money than we do. But anyway, here we go. Equity capitalization rate is the equity income divided by the equity value equals the equity capitalization rate. We skip some of them again? No, we haven't. The equity yield rate is the rate of return on equity capital or an investor's expected return on his investment. The expense ratio, which we have a lot of discussion, the percentage of expenses in relationship to the effective gross income. And here we have that ERB question again, is the most accurate method of determining value in direct capitalization. The ERB basic formula for ERB now. What if the question says, what is the basic formula for ERB? It's going to be income divided by rate equals value. It may show the other possibilities there. I know the level exam it does. It shows all four possibilities, but it asks what is the basic formula. So the basic formula is income divided by rate equals value. Does that make sense?
Why would either one be incorrect?
The basic formula is you're talking about the income. How much income it produce, what kind of rate you're going to do, what kind of value you get. The other formulas will work, but the basic formula deals with the income.
Is ERB, spell out ERB and.
Divided by the rate. You know what I'm saying? So I had the same thought first time I said, well, all four of them are right. Well, this is the most basic one because we're talking about the income, return rate, cap rate, value.
Wait, you said there's
Even
four.
though the other three will be correct as a formula, but the most basic formula is income divided by rate.
What's the fourth one?
It's called trick you, okay?
Okay.
Hope you will not get it right. No, I'm just kidding. No, it just,
Oh, you mean they'll give you four?
they'll give you all four of the possibilities.
Okay, all right.
You know what I'm
One of
saying?
them is way off. Okay, I
Income
got
equals
you.
rate times value. All those formulas are possible. The basic formula is income divided by rate equals value.
Yeah.
That's the most basic. The land capitalization rate, the land capitalization rate is the same as a discount rate or the rate of return on the investment. Land income divided by land value equals the land cap rate. To leverage. What's leverage mean? When you bought your house, you leveraged probably. You borrowed some money, didn't you? Debt capital, the amount of ratio is owed on the property, and you levered it, you borrowed some money. A non-liquidity rate is one of the core rates of the built-up rate. Liquidity refers to an investor's ability to convert the asset to cash. I was discussing with my son on the phone last night. My nephew trying to have a brain surgery. He doesn't have any insurance, and they're scrambling to figure out how they're going to make this work. We had a cousin one time had a son that was had special needs, and he passed away when he was in 8th grade. But he always said he had to keep all his assets liquid. In the event they discovered a cure in Germany, they had to be on a plane the next morning. Get a bunch of rent house. He said, we have to be liquid. So they find something to fix him, we're on a plane tomorrow, okay? We're out of here. something I can turn into cash real fast or borrow money against. He said, hey, we're liquid, just in case that happens, but it never happened. He sadly passed away, but he was brilliantly smart too. He was valedictorian of the 8th grade class. They actually had a special graduation ceremony about 6 weeks before graduation. He didn't make it to graduation, but he was brilliantly smart. Market rent, prevailing rent in the marketplace, always use market rents, what a prudent landlord would charge and what a prudent tenant would pay, we used to say. The money management rate is the rate for managing the investment. Part of the built-up discount rate is not the same as the management rate. It's a money management rate. Mortgage capitalization rate is the annual debt service divided by the total loan equals a mortgage capitalization constant. It is the lender's capitalization rate. Mortgage constant, it says, well, I did that one there. That's like a butt dial, almost. Anyway, so, see mortgage capitalization rate. Mortgage interest rate is the interest rate stated on the mortgage itself. Here's the NOI. Here's a good formula. It's a PGR minus the VCL plus the SI minus the OE equals NOI. If you think about that, you can process that in that manner. Then we talked about operating expenses. It's annual reoccurring expenses necessary to maintain the property that the owners typically pay. Only use market expenses, not the contract expenses. Those who are working in commercial will see all kinds of things presented as the expenses that may or may not be directly related to the property. Sometimes they're testing you to see if you know the difference, okay? And they'll trick you every once in a while, and you'll feel bad later. What do you do next time you see them? You're smarter next time you see them. You don't try to get even. You love to, but you don't try to get even, but you're smarter next time, okay? That was too quick. Potential gross income. It's the PGR plus the SI equals a PGI, or all of the market income of properties capable of producing. So potential gross. That's potential gross rent plus secondary income. That's all it's going to produce. The potential gross rent is the total rent a property could produce at a market rent with 100% occupancy.
Annually, or unless otherwise
It's
stated,
only going to be annually, yes, sir. It could give it to you monthly. What do you got to do?
multiply by 12.
Well, 5 times 12. You got to convert it, don't you? That's some of the questions you'll have in different parts of these exams. We'll give you a monthly information and ask you an annual question, or give you annual information and ask you a monthly question. You follow me? And all you got to do is read the question carefully and see what it's, if you had, I love paper because you just underline that part when you're reading it. That way it just reminds you. But on a computer screen, you can't highlight that screen. They're going to probably kick you out of there probably for having the highlight in your pocket. But anyway, so the potential gross rent is the maximum amount of rent is 100% occupied. The recapture rate is the return of investment, or the amount of recaptured annually from the NOI for wasting assets. And we'll talk about wasting assets here in a little bit. Reserves for replacement is an annual allowance for replacement cost of short-lived items that will not last the remaining economic life of the property. The stuff is going to be short-lived: carpet, AC, paint, roof. The risk rate is a rate included in the built-up discount rate that considers the risk of the investment. The safe rate is a rate included in the built-up discount rate, usually equal to a T-bill or some other safe investment rate. Secondary income, income to the property that is not rental income. And if you have a question, if somebody has a laundry mat in an apartment complex, what do you call that? It could be secondary income, you know what I'm saying? Or it could say, which of the following is secondary income? You know, apartment rent, laundry mat, something else. You have to pick out the one that's secondary income. Vacancy collection loss, we see here this is two separate sources. usually expressed as a combined percentage, one from the lack of occupancy, and one from the bad debt. Bad debt. Bad debt. Always use market rents and market expenses. Do not use contract rents or expenses. Texas appeal courts have ruled that market rent is appropriate regardless of the lease contract on the property. Sometimes our tricky part, it will give you actual rents and market rents, and what you gotta do, pick the market rent, right? You learned yesterday a little bit, there's a couple of those questions that give you an expense percentage that you didn't use, did you? So, same way on the income information, they'll give you information sometimes that you don't necessarily use in the equation. Let's click over here, potential rent development. I'm just doing it for once my emails. I've got some superintendents all fired up about this pressure. There's always somebody fired up in there. Taxing units. So all I do is forward the email to my assistant, and she answers the questions. Occasionally my delinquent tax return sends me a text. So-and-so fixing to send you an email, be sure you answer. Well, someone went into my spam percentage really high now. So one superintendent's emails always go in the spam file for some reason, I don't know why. I haven't fixed that yet, but I probably need to, but I think it's where it belongs. Okay, anyway, so, just kidding.
We just
They're all
fired our
important.
superintendent.
Huh?
We just fired our superintendent
You what now?
last night. We fired our superintendent.
Yeah.
He got fired last night.
Who did?
Our Seminoles superintendent.
You got fired? In the middle of the year?
Yep.
Do something bad?
Last year, he got pulled over coming back from a school event in a school vehicle and got a DWI. And we kept him, renewed his contract for 5 years, and then something must have happened here recently.
Get rid of him, huh?
And as of Friday, he is
No
no longer.
longer there. When I was a senior in high school, the superintendent had a heart attack and couldn't be around. High school principal got a DWI coming back from a coach's banquet, so he's dismissed for a while. So the football coach is literally, the football coach is the acting superintendent principal, and you put a football coach in charge of discipline, you don't have any problems. I mean, those kids that are a little rough around the edges, understand, in my day, he would light you up, okay? And you had no choice then, back then, but hey, when Coach Davis is in charge of discipline, the one way, straight way. Now, there's a little bit of wobble, but hey, if you got wobble, you'll get popped back in the path. But that's sad because there's a lady I know in my part of the world, got a speeding ticket in the ag pickup, pulling a trailer with 6 kids in the cab, going 90 and a 65. And they can't pay that, So you're endangering lives. I don't know, it's just a tough situation. But the problem is, once you give them a 5-year extension,
You gotta pay him?
you gotta pay him now.
Yeah.
He had a home run deal there. So I don't know. I'm not sure there's enough money to pay me to be a superintendent, though, okay? That's my personal, and they'll say the same thing about my job, but their job, you got all those children to educate. Let's rock and roll. Percentage lease. A percentage rent usually has a base rent, the tenant pays plus a percentage of income. It's common in a retail lease. You got a base lease, and you got a percentage of your sales that you pay towards this lease. You got a graduated lease. We have a lease that calls for specified increase in rent level at a specified time periods. We've learned in the last 90 days, we have a gentleman that's came to town from Wichita Falls and bought all kinds of buildings around the square. He remodeled those. And my former commercial appraiser did not manage that very well, in my opinion. But the guy gave us some rents. Now, we've learned through the process in the last several months, that he gave them special rents for 2 years. And in cases, some of them, they doubled after 2 years, okay? So those market rents have changed around the square after that initial period of graduating. Get your foot in the door, get you beer to flowing or whatever, tacos to moving, whatever you're selling. then your rent's gonna double. So that's kind of a shock to us that they literally have some jumping of terms. You could have some indexing of the rents. It could be tied back to a consumer price index. In other words, if the CPI goes, my base rent's $1,000, but next year we're gonna adjust it based on the CPI. So if the CPI went up 2.5%, my rent's gonna jump 2.5%. You got triple net. Everybody understand lessee and lessor? The lessor is the one that owns the building, the lessee the one that rents. So in some cases, the lessee pays all the maintenance and expenses, including taxes and insurance. So the landlord just getting a check, he's not having to pay any expenses. It's all up to the lessee to pay that, which makes it pretty sweet. Then we have some that says double net, they're only paying part of that. Here's an example on your page. Official market rate is $10,000 times $1 per square foot. It's $10,000 per month, $120,000 annually. That's the way you would say if the rent was $1 per square foot per month. It's $10,000 a month, $120,000 annually. We talk about vacancy and collection losses here is based on the market vacancy of a property type in a specific market, which the collection loss earlier was typically from loss due to bad debt. Secondary income is income produced by the properties not part of the rent. Examples could be garage rental, clubhouse rental, concierge services, vending machines, could be a laundromat in there somewhere or something like that. It would produce some additional income. Allowable operating expenses. This is where it gets really kind of crazy if you're working with a tax professional or even a property owner of what's allowable, what's not allowable. Always use expenses that are recognized by the market, not the contract. That is on the property. Expenses may be stated as a percentage of the EGI. We call it expense ratio in some cases. Expense ratios are particularly helpful when comparing properties. So if you've got a bunch of hotels in your county and you've worked up the expense ratio on half a dozen of them, and it indicates to you that expenses are coming in between 62 and 65%, then you kind of know what expenses should be, don't you? So the next guy comes in with a 68 or 70% expense ratio, you can politely say, normal expenses in this area appear to be in the 62 to 65% range. I'll be happy to look at your numbers in that range, but I can't use your 68%. Unless you can really show me some reason in there, but typically the market's going to dictate what those expense ratios are going to be. Whoa. I do like this, it always works better. They don't linger in, I guess, I don't know. I'm going to put it down a little bit for a minute. Disallowed expenses. Look on your page, on your page 119, let's talk about these before we go to disallowed. Let's cover some allowed first, then we get to disallowed maybe. These are allowable expenses. Below are examples of operating expenses that may be deductible. Always use expenses that are recognized by the market, not the contract. Could have expense ratio. Here's an example. Advertising, necessary to keep the building occupied. Furniture rental. You can have some lobby furniture, office furniture that's rented. Insurance could be a fixed expense, usually deductible unless the lease calls for the lessee to pay that expense. Janitorial or cleaning expense, lawn service, maintenance lawn and shrubs. Management, usually as a percentage of the EGI. A fee paid to manage the property can be paid to an outside property management company, or it could be a charge off as an expense to the owner for managing his own property. You have some miscellaneous expenses. I said small expenditure for test purposes, they always allow this expense. Here's what it says it right here. We're going to allow it, but the example they do in here, they don't allow it. So we're going to have to correct that part, okay? It tells us here to allow it, and in the example it doesn't allow it, so we're going to have to correct that. We'll get them straightened out.
So small expenditures for test purposes always allow this expense?
For the purpose of this part, allowance of expense, it's typically a real small expense. If somebody brought you an operating statement that said miscellaneous expense, $325, it's not worth the argument, is it? Now, if it says $5,000 miscellaneous, we might want to know what it is, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause it's kicking that ratio out a little bit sometimes. Repairs, minor repairs. That doesn't include adding a wing to the wing to the apartment complex, okay? That's a capital expenditure. Reserve for replacement, these are short-lived items in the cost approach that have remaining economic life is less than the improvements remaining economic life, divided the total cost of the estimated life. 1 year's cost of the short-lived item is deducted in the operating expense. If new carpet's gonna cost $10,000 and last 10 years, we would allow $1,000 a year for reserve for replacement. So technically, when you got to the end of that 10 years, there'd be money set aside to replace the carpet. I was going to the dollar store the other day, and the hotel next door is getting new carpet. Whooped the cell phone out. So I got evidence of a new carpet down, okay? Them guys are got rolled out in the parking lot. So you do that stuff though, because they won't tell you that stuff. But if you observe it, you make a little note, got a picture of the card. We need a new carpet. Y'all selling carpet out of the parking lot now? No, probably not. Okay, so anyway. But what's really neat though, what's really neat though, if you're in smaller or even bigger areas and you observe this stuff, you make a note. So the next year when you're dealing with that tax agent that's got an office in Dallas or San Antonio or Houston, and he's in a big old argument with you about something, you ask him the question, when's the last time you seen the property? Oh, well, yeah, no, yeah, I've seen pictures, and they're all the same. When they remodel this thing, well, I'm not sure they have. How do you know that? I was in there stepping over boards at Jack in the Box one night, and they was remodeling. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. My client didn't tell me that, you know. So use that against them then, okay? To leverage a little bit of a effective age judgment maybe, okay? We had a large tank truck company, locally, it's local owned, they sold out. Then it exploded, like doubled. On my previous contract company, 1 year the value was $2.5 million, next year it's like 2.25, and I just called and said, hey, these guys got more stuff out there than they did. Really? Yeah. So then the agent calls me, and it goes something like this, hey bud, what's the problem? I said, well, they got more stuff than they got last year.